In a town called Ogoja, located in Cross River State, Nigeria, there lived a man named Uche and his wife Nikki. They were once the epitome of a happy couple, but the shadows of their relationship darkened as Nkechi's temperament became increasingly volatile. The vibrant beer parlor she owned, which provided for the family, had turned her into a tyrant at home. Uche, a gentle soul, had always admired Nkechi's strength and ambition. However, the very qualities that once attracted him became the source of his torment. As the breadwinner, Nkechi would often flaunt her authority, reminding Uche of his shortcomings. "I'm the one bringing money into this house. What have you done to help us?" she would scold him, her voice dripping with disdain. Uche was a gentleman with a quiet strength, the type of person who never raised his voice, even when faced with difficulty. He was known around the community as a dependable, kind soul, often helping neighbors with odd jobs and offering advice to young people in need of guidance. He and his wife Nkechi had been married for 5 years, but theirs was not the happy marriage many assumed it to be. Nkechi had a habit of lashing out at him, both verbally and physically. Whenever she felt slighted or things didn't go her way, she was skilled at making Uche feel small, chipping away at his confidence and pride with every harsh word and slap. The verbal abuse began subtly, with belittling remarks about Uche's lack of employment, but it escalated. Whenever Uche made a mistake, even trivial ones like forgetting to fetch a loaf of bread, Nkechi would unleash her fury. "You useless." A man who can't even remember simple things, she would shout, her words slicing through his spirit. Uche would retreat into silence, the weight of her words suffocating him. Nkechi's anger wasn't just verbal, it often turned physical. There were days when the stress of managing the bar seemed to spill over into their home life. After a long night of serving drinks, she would return home, her temper flaring for no apparent reason. Uche learned to tread carefully, his heart racing at the thought of setting her off. Years passed, and Uche grew increasingly isolated. He began to lose his sense of self and even doubted his own worth. One evening, after she had a particularly busy night at the bar, Uche made the mistake of asking if they could use some of her earnings to buy foodstuffs. Her response was swift and violent. "How dare you question me?" she yelled, lunging for his belt. In an instant, she had it in her hands, the leather coiling around her fingers like a serpent, ready to strike. Uche's heart sank as he braced himself, knowing he was powerless against her rage. The belt cut through the air, landing on his back, leaving both physical and emotional scars. She picked one of his bags and threw it at him, and demanded he leaves the house immediately. After the blows, Nkechi would often feel remorseful, and in those moments she would apologize, her eyes glistening with tears. Uche would forgive her, clinging to the hope that the woman he once loved was still inside. Yet, as days turned into months, the cycle of abuse continued. It was as if Uche was trapped in a storm, with no shelter in sight. Outside their home, Nkechi maintained a facade of control and charm. She was the life of the party at her beer parlor, greeting customers with a warm smile and a hearty laugh. Yet, the moment they were alone, the mask would fall. Uche would sit at a corner table, a shadow of the man he used to be, nursing a drink and watching the world pass by. The abuse didn't end though, it spilled out into the public. If Nkechi felt a pang of jealousy or frustration, she wouldn't hesitate to berate him in front of others. "Look at him. My husband who can't even stand up for himself," she would say, laughter erupting from the patrons at the bar. Uche would force a smile, his heart aching with humiliation. Despite the pain, Uche felt trapped in a world where he had no power. He had lost friends who once rallied around him, their concern dismissed by Nkechi's men who envied her success. Uche believed he was responsible for her actions, that if he were just a better husband, things would change. But deep down, he knew that it was her insecurities manifesting as aggression. One fateful night, after a particularly brutal episode, Uche sat in the dark, his body aching and his spirit crushed. As he nursed his wounds, he began to contemplate his life. The pain of the abuse weighed heavily on him, but it was the realization that he had lost his identity that shook him to his core. Uche decided he couldn't endure this life any longer. He sought solace in a nearby community center, where he met others who had faced similar struggles. Sharing his story, Uche found compassion and understanding. With their encouragement, he began to rebuild his sense of self-worth. He attended workshops on self-esteem and emotional resilience, slowly learning to stand up for himself. Determined to break free from the cycle of abuse, Uche started a small business selling local crafts. With each sale, he felt a spark of independence reignite within him. He found his voice and began to express himself without fear of retribution. Uche realized he was not alone. There were many people who cared for him and wanted to help him thrive. Soon his business began to flourish. People sought him out not only for his talent but for his warmth and kindness, qualities that seemed to radiate from him once he had broken free from the shadows of his troubled marriage. Nkechi, however, did not take kindly to his newfound independence. She noticed that Uche was no longer afraid of her, that he stood taller and answered her barbs with calm, unshaken resolve. This enraged her, and one evening she lashed out in a violent rage, furious that he was no longer the passive, submissive man she had controlled for years. Empowered by newfound confidence, Uche confronted Nkechi one evening. "I deserve respect, and I will no longer accept this abuse," he declared, his voice steady. As time passed, Uche's strength grew, and so did his business. He established a reputation in Ogoja as a craftsman, and slowly the townsfolk began to see him for the resilient man he had become. Nkechi, on the other hand, began to lose customers at her bar, her once dominant presence fading as people started to recognize her abusive behavior. Uche finally found the courage to leave the toxic environment. He relocated to a nearby town where he could start anew, free from the shadows of his past. With his business flourishing, Uche became a mentor for others who had faced similar struggles. He shared his journey of overcoming abuse, helping to empower those who felt trapped.
She said she loves me every time we date. Nobody can take our love. She said no other fit to take my breath away, so I will give you my life. Joy fellow rolling, no sisi kalole. Girl, I cannot wait to be one with you on a Saturday.